3-hour-long video should be sufficient, right?
And so with that legacy following her around, combined with the fact that she'd been betrayed by Hal Jordan, and then now lost one of her fellow Lost Lanterns, her life is literally in turmoil. And so what ends up happening here is that on the journey back to the home planet of Kihon, where they're basically taking his body back to his family, once the Lost Lanterns arrive, they basically end up finding out that every single person had been killed. Now, this had been done by a character named Eamon Sword. Now, the cool thing about this is that it's pretty new to Green Lantern. Eamon Sword is the son of Abin Sword, and Abin Sword was the guy who crash landed on Earth and basically told his ring, find a new host, and his ring found Hal Jordan. And so because of this, Eamon Sword always believed that he was the heir to his father's ring. Now, when it comes
always
to
like the first one in here, Skylar.
it's not like Eamon Sword just kind of came out of nowhere with this belief system. That's happened quite a few
Oh, it
times.
says
When it comes
toxin.
to
Let me
different
fix that real
lanterns
quick.
that are out there, I believe Tomar Ray was the father and Tomar 2 is the son. But when it comes to the different Green Lanterns that are out there,
We're doing anti-venom on this one, guys. Sorry, hold on.
battle, and then their
I
offspring
think I can change it mid-stream
and so again, it's kind of a cool scenario,
here.
and Eamon sort of believed that he should have been in line for his father's ring. The result is that Hal Jordan got it instead, and Eamon Sword had been consistently plotting ways to basically bring down Hal Jordan. Now, all of this coincided with the emergence of the Sinestro Corps and Eamon Sword being given a ring. But what this did is it led to its most logical conclusion when Eamon Sword basically is the one that killed the entire family of Kihon, and then Lyra, in her anger and her rage, basically lashes out and kills Eamon Sword. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. With the Sinestro Corps, despite the fact that they have these rings that allow them to do all kinds of different things, when it comes to the different cores that exist in the DC mythos, they all exist to feed off of emotion. So the Green Lanterns
There we go.
willpower. So long as there's somebody out there who's willing to stand up.
Okay, I changed the title now. It should be correct.
Willpower in the universe. At the same time, so long as there's somebody there who says, oh my God, I'm so scared that things might go bad, there will always be fear in the universe. As long as there's somebody who's angry, as long as there's somebody who loves, as long as there's life, as long as there's death, those aspects of the emotional spectrum will always exist, and the cores will always be there. And so because of this, Eamon Sword believed that he could basically turn himself into a martyr. That what he could do is he could allow himself, or he could go through, kill the family of Kihon, and then other members of the Sinestro Corps would see how this impacted existing Green Lanterns, and in turn, take up the same task, and literally just start killing off families of Green Lanterns who exist. Again, sowing chaos.
Alright, there we go.
Guerrilla warfare tactics against a far more organized and structured Lantern Corps, especially considering that the Sinestro Corps does not have a leader, Sinestro, because he's currently held in prison. And so with the death of Eamon Sword, what happens here is this ring basically just takes off to seek out a viable host. It ends up attempting to bond itself to the Scarecrow. The funny thing about this is that this is actually a teaser of things to come, because the Scarecrow is going to play a pretty cool role once we start getting into like Blackest Night, Brightest Day, and different things like that, where the ring initially appears to him with the intention of bonding itself. Of course, Hal Jordan and John Stewart show up, they basically save the day, and nothing happens. You know, the Scarecrow doesn't end up getting the ring. But what this does is this leads into the trial of Lyra. When it came to the Sinestro Corps War, one of the major laws that was basically implemented by the Guardians of the Universe was that those individuals who are members of the Green Lantern Corps have authorization to use lethal force against members of the Sinestro Corps. And that's literally the argument that Lyra uses. She says, who cares why I killed him? What matters is that he was a villain. You know, he did some terrible things. He killed a family of people.
I gotta wash my hand really quick. I'll be right back.
Now, the argument is not without merit. Let's say, for example, he didn't kill Eamon Sword. And let's say that Eamon Sword was captured for his crimes, he was brought back to Oa, and then he escaped. Well, that would mean he would go right back to doing what he was doing before. He would go right back to killing people. Why sacrifice the lives of others? That's basically the argument that's being made on, from the Green Lanterns to the Guardians of the Universe is, hey, look, justice is the most important thing. And so, yes, this guy killed children, but he deserves a fair trial just like everybody else. No, he doesn't. He gave up that right when he murdered a family. He sacrificed that. That's the choice that he made. He looked at the consequences of his own actions and said, if I commit this crime, then there's a good chance somebody's going to come and kill me, and I got killed. Why give that chance? Why go to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or an 80-year-old woman and say, hey, look, yeah, there's a chance you're going to die, and Eamon Sword is going to be the one to kill you, and it sucks that that's going to happen. But, that's just the price we pay when it comes to justice. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't work that way. That guy made a choice. he paid the price. And the result is that the Green Lanterns effectively turn on Lyra. Now, what this also does is this brings in something called the Alpha Lanterns. And the reason for this is because the actions of Lyra throw into sharp relief that there are going to be Green Lanterns out there who are going to basically look at the rules as they exist and then interpret them different ways. And that's the problem, is that these rules are not absolute. These rules are basically written in a way where anybody can look at them. You can show the rules to 5 different people and give them each a circumstance, and they'll interpret the rules in different ways. The law says lethal force can be used against a member of the Sinestro Corps. It does not say lethal force can be used against a member of the Sinestro Corps, but only if they're trying to attack you. It doesn't say that. And so in truth, she has all legitimate means to make this case. What the Guardians basically do is that instead of coming along and saying, okay, we are going to make a law, and then we're going to add stipulations to that law for every conceivable circumstance that could possibly exist, what they end up doing is they come along and they create the Alpha Lanterns. And the Alpha Lanterns serve the purpose of basically being field police. They're the ones that show up. If a Green Lantern goes out and commits something they shouldn't do, but technically speaking, they fall within the confines of a law, the Alpha Lanterns will respond, and the Alpha Lanterns will analyze the situation. They'll be the ones to basically decide whether this lantern was right or wrong. Now, the question has to be asked, how does this fix anything? What's different from the Alpha Lantern showing up and saying, yep, they're right, to just another arbitrary Green Lantern showing up and saying, no, they're wrong? The reason why this matters is because if you're new to the whole Green Lantern mythos, back when the Guardians of the Universe first tried to create order, tried to instill order across the universe, they created what were called the Manhunters. And the Manhunters were basically these robots that were tasked with the purpose of keeping the universe safe. The problem with this is that the Manhunters programming eventually went awry. They basically became bad guys. They just started cutting a swath through the universe, killing all different forms of life, all in the name of order and justice. And so eventually the Guardians of the Universe had to do away with the Manhunters and in turn began creating the Green Lantern Corps under the idea that Green Lanterns would be able to use their own experiences, their own understanding of right and wrong, and then decide what action needs to be taken, all of which was predicated on the fact that before Sinestro Corps War, Green Lanterns couldn't kill. And so the idea that Green Lanterns can kill complicates everything. And so what ends up happening here is that where individuals are basically chosen to become Alpha Lanterns, and John Stewart's one of them, John Stewart actually turns them down. John Stewart actually says no, he doesn't want to be any part of that. And the reason why is because the Guardians say the Alpha Lanterns will exist to basically serve the purpose of enforcing the 10 laws that the Guardians of the Universe have put into creation. The problem with this is that only 2 of those laws are known. And so those individuals who signed up to become Alpha Lanterns don't know what other laws they're going to be forced to implement. They could very well be forced to implement laws that say it's illegal to fly from one side of the universe to the other on a Thursday. We have no idea what these laws are going to be. I mean, there wouldn't be anything that ridiculous, but you guys understand what I'm saying. They're basically signing up to enforce rules that they don't know anything about. What the Alpha Lanterns do is basically stand as this sort of combination of machinery and biological organisms. They're effectively cyborgs, or at least they seem to be that way. Now, the reason why this is so cool is because Green Lanterns traditionally, which is to say Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, they have to charge their range. Their range will run low. The reason why this is important is because with the Alpha Lanterns, they don't have that problem. The Alpha Lanterns mainline the central power battery. And so it's like the difference between you having a remote control that runs off batteries and having a remote control that plugs in on the wall. At the end of the day, they do serve the same purpose, but one is not going to run out of power as long as you have power going to your house. And so what ends up happening here is that where Lyra just immediately loses it, and everybody basically says, okay, look, you are effectively guilty. We're going to hold you accountable for your crimes. The Alpha Lanterns begin the process of essentially arresting her. But in this particular circumstance, the Alpha Lanterns begin to demonstrate this sort of totalitarian position where it's almost like they just start executing, or at least they intend to execute, Lyra on the spot. Now, this is important because what this the stage for the possibility of the Guardians of the Universe repeating their mistakes again. The Guardians of the Universe have consistently shown themselves to be extremely intelligent and very capable. They're able to make mistakes just like everybody else. They can't see the future. They don't know everything about everything. And the Alpha Lanterns are a perfect example of that. Creating a police force within the Green Lanterns with virtually no oversight is going to end in nothing good. It's going to cause all kinds of problems. And so what ends up happening here is that with the first law having already been written, what the Guardians do is they come along and they basically write in stone the second law. And the second law is that anybody who is an enemy of the Green Lantern Corps will be met with lethal force by the Green Lanterns. Now, this is important because what ended up happening is during Sinestro Corps, the Guardians of the Universe said lethal force is authorized against the Sinestro Corps. That was it. It was only against the Sinestro Sinestro Corps. Now, again, this hits back home to the conversation that Hal Jordan has with Sinestro, where Sinestro says, I told you I was right. I told you that I won this war. Because now that the Green Lanterns can use lethal force against anybody who's an enemy of the Green Lantern, where does that stop? Is an enemy of the Green Lantern a person that's running for political office that disagrees with Green Lanterns? Is an enemy of the Green Lanterns a person standing on a street corner saying, I don't believe the Green Lanterns are right? Where do you draw this line? At what point do you say, yes, this person's an enemy, but they're not a mortal enemy? They're not going to actually do us any harm. This allows the stage to be set for the Green Lanterns to be transformed from a peacekeeping force into a militaristic controlling force, effectively becoming exactly what Sinestro wanted them to be, where they used fear and they used force to maintain order across the universe, as opposed to allowing people to basically live their own lives. And so what ends up happening here is we basically pick up with Lyra as she's being transported back to her time. Because again, when a person's found guilty of a crime like this in the Green Lanterns, they're basically just kicked out. That's really all it is. It's just you're banned from the Green Lantern Corps and you're sent back home. Now, for a lot of people, this is a big deal. Because remember, when a person's given a Green Lantern ring, a massive amount of power comes with that. The Green Lantern ring becomes as much their identity as it becomes a source of power. In this instance, that was the only way for Lyra to, at least as far as she perceived it, to regain the honor lost by her father. But being kicked out of the Green Lantern means she's now just the daughter of a father who was shamed and who was shunned for his actions as a renegade Lantern and basically just kicked out of the Corps. And so because of this, in this moment when she just swears absolute vengeance against anybody, that's considered to be an enemy of her or at least all the other members of the Sinestro Corps, she's suddenly met with the arrival of a Red Lantern ring. And this marks chronologically the first time in DC Comics that the Red Lanterns actually make their appearance. The secret origin of Hal Jordan that we did earlier and when we started the whole Green Lantern thing, technically speaking, that happens after this. But the cool thing about this is that this is the first introduction of the Red Lanterns into DC. The first time that we actually see a Lantern Corps that's predicated on absolute pure and unadulterated rage. Oh my goodness, Rob Core. I woke up this morning, I had a leisurely breakfast of steak and eggs, I was watching World War Z, the book is still better than the movie, and we are getting ready to cover Rage of the Red Lanterns. So, this story is amazing. Oh my god, this is so good, because this is like, I think it's this, and then it's Agent Orange, which is Mark Lee's, and then we go with the Blackest Night. So we've got like 2 weeks until we start Blackest Night, which I'm really kind of hyped about, because that story is insanely good. But for those of you guys who are just now getting caught up with us here on Green Lantern Sundays, I guess is what it is, the Green Lantern landscape so far has basically dealt with Sinestro Corps, which is to say the villain Thal Sinestro, a former Green Lantern who basically became corrupted by his power, falling, and then forming his own Yellow Lantern Corps. This really led into a series of paradigm shifts, where the Green Lanterns were always more of a peacekeeping force because of the violence of Sinestro, because his rings were not limited by the ability to kill. Like the Green Lantern rings, they couldn't actually kill people. The Guardians of the Universe, the creators of the Green Lantern Corps, basically modified the rules of the rings so that Green Lanterns could now kill people. And this was the ultimate goal of Thal Sinestro, was to basically turn the Green Lanterns, or at least begin the process of taking the universe's eye, how they perceive the Green Lanterns, and move it away from seeing the Green Lanterns as protectors to seeing the Green Lanterns as really more of like a police force, like this sort of army, belonging to these all-powerful beings, and would lead people down the path of coming to believe that the Green Lanterns were effectively paving the way for the Guardians of the Universe to take over the universe. And that's not what was actually happening. All that Thal Sinestro needed was the belief that that's what was going to happen. Now, what this does is it shifts over to the Red Lanterns, to Atrocitus. Now, Atrocitus is a character that we haven't really talked about since we covered the secret origin story of Hal Jordan the Green Lantern. But Atrocitus was formerly a guy, I think his name was Patros, who was formerly just a guy residing in Sector 666, just one of the many sectors that exist all throughout the universe. When it comes to DC Comics, the universe is divided into sections, into sectors. So think of the universe, or think of the sectors of the universe as like neighborhoods, more or less, is the best way to think of it. But the idea here is that when the Guardians of the Universe, before they created the Green Lanterns, they had what were called the Manhunters. The idea was that if there was going to be a peacekeeping force around the universe, then the best way to do that was to use robots, because robots were only governed by their programming. They weren't governed by emotion. They weren't governed by fear, rage, anger, wrath, any of those things. Now, this eventually led to the programming of the Manhunters going awry, and one of the first casualties of their screwed-up programming was Sector 666. And at this time, the family of Atrocitus was basically destroyed in the conflict. Now, the reason why this matters is because what happened this is Atrocitus was just set by absolute pure rage. Now, as we know, rage is one of the aspects of the emotional spectrum. Remember, when it comes to the whole Green Lantern mythos, the Blue Lantern rings of hope, the Orange Lantern ring of avarice and greed, the Yellow Lantern ring of fear, they're all tied into the emotional spectrum. So long as there's an emotion of rage, so long as somebody in the universe is mad as hell, there will always be a source of energy for the Red Lantern. And so because of this, a lot of what this early story really does is just kind of flesh out the nature of Atrocitus forming his own Red Lantern Corps. Now again, all that's really required in order for a person to be able to form a Corps is to tap into the emotional spectrum. But it's easier said than done. It really just requires somebody to be so angry that it basically encompasses their heart. They become the living embodiment of rage. When that happens, it's almost like going Super Saiyan for the first time in Dragon Ball, right? Like you just kind of manifest these new powers and abilities. With the Green Lantern, they just suddenly pop out a power battery and they're able to tap into this emotional spectrum. Now again, what this does is it leads to Atrocitus becoming the first of the Red Lanterns. Now the other half of this is, again, this continued fallout of Sinestro Corps War. And again, we covered that. We talked about that during the Sinestro Corps War problem. We said that that story was going to lay the groundwork for a lot of things that came after. And there were going to be a lot of threads coming out of that that were going to continue on. One of the things that takes place here, and really one of the major threads that leads directly into Blackest Night, is what it was that happened to the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor is basically the harbinger of the death of the multiverse. You know, whenever the multiverse comes into existence, you know, it died during Crisis on Infinite Earths, it came back during Infinite Crisis. Whenever the multiverse exists, the Anti-Monitor will always manifest with it, because the Anti-Monitor is just the living embodiment of the death of the multiverse, the best way to describe it. The result of this is that the Anti-Monitor allied itself with the Sinestro Corps. Now, at the end of Sinestro Corps War, the Anti-Monitor was more or less defeated and just kind of shot out into space. But what we ended up finding out is that some unknown being had basically grabbed the Anti-Monitor and turned him into a central power battery. What this also does is it brings into sharp relief the idea of the Scarred Guardian. Now, I don't think the Scarred Guardian actually has a name. All we really know is that this is one of the Guardians of the universe that has basically grabbed one of the Green Lanterns by the name of Ash and sent him on a mission finding out what happened to the Anti-Monitor. Now, this is inevitably going to pave the way for the introduction of Blackest Night, but at this point, information is just scant. I mean, it's so scarce. We'll get a little bit more into what the prophecy of the Blackest Night means as we go through this, but what ends up happening here is the Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, they're tasked with basically escorting Al Sinestro to his execution. Green Lanterns don't necessarily execute one of their own, they kind of like to use their power. But with Al Sinestro, it's a whole different beast, because not only did he abuse his power and find himself booted out of the Green Lantern Corps, he in turn formed his own Lantern Corps and then tried to kill Green Lanterns. And so he's basically considered guilty of high treason against the Guardians of the Universe and the Lanterns. And so because of this, what ends up happening is that in the midst of him basically being taken to his imminent execution, the most logical scenario unfolds when we end up having the Sinestro Corps really just kind of pop out of nowhere for the purpose of attacking the Green Lanterns. Now again, all this seems to be the workings of the Scarred Guardian behind the scenes. The Scarred Guardian was the one who informed the various members of the Sinestro Corps, the ones who were left, that Thal Sinestro is being escorted to his destination, to Kruger. The Scarred Guardian is the one that basically passed all this information on so that the Sinestro Corps would know exactly where to hit it. But the caveat to this is that in the midst of the Green Lanterns escorting Thal Sinestro and being ambushed by the Sinestro Corps, they're met with the unexpected arrival of the Red Lanterns. Now again, the reason why Atrocitus is really chasing after Sinestro, the reason why he harbors such hatred for him, is because of the fact that during the secret origin story that we have talked about, what you'll find down in the description alongside all the other Green Lantern videos in the playlist, Thal Sinestro was the guy who basically defeated Atrocitus back when Atrocitus had really just kind of popped up for one of the first times. The result was that once Atrocitus was taken back and dropped on the planet of Bismarck, he basically made a prophecy that a time would come when Thal Sinestro's home planet of Kruger would descend into chaos and madness, and in an attempt to control it, Thal Sinestro would basically become a dictator. He would effectively cast aside the role of the Green Lantern and essentially become a villain. And that's exactly what happened. Now remember, the reason why this happens is because the 5 inversions, who were the 5 survivors of the assault on Sector 666 by the Manhunters alongside Atrocitus, they had the ability to cast spells, to delve into sorcery, different things like that, that would let them see the future. And so what ended up happening is when the 5 inversions looked into the future, they saw what Sinestro would become, the events that would lead him to this very moment. Now, Thal Sinestro initially avoided it. They said, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not worried about that. But ultimately, it all proved itself to be true. The crazy thing about this is that when it comes to the various lanterns and how they interact with one another, different lanterns have different effects on other lantern corps. For example, what we end up having here is the Red Lanterns who basically just begin burning away the power of every single lantern that they come across. The Green Lantern ring, Hal Jordan, begins to become corrupted. And what happens is he's suddenly met by the arrival of a guy he's never seen before named St. Walker, who claims to be a Blue Lantern. Now, here's the crazy thing. I do not understand why it is that Green Lantern fans love St. Walker. The closest thing I can get to it, the only explanation I can come up with, is the Blue Lanterns are basically like the Jedi of the DC universe. That's really it. They're just kind of like monks, and they're like, all will be well. I mean, it's one of those things. It's one of those weird things. But this is what I'm talking about when I say rings can complement others. The Blue Lantern rings have the ability to basically recharge Green Lantern rings and even supercharge them. So again, having a Blue Lantern in your corner basically bolsters the powers of a Green Lantern. Now, there are also other aspects of the Blue Lantern, but in terms of where they come from, in terms of how they got here, what we know is that in the aftermath of the Sinestro Corps War, we basically had this prophecy of Blackest Night. Now, the prophecy of Blackest Night, again, was another vision from the 5 inversions. They had looked into the future and they had seen there's going to be this massive war of light. That basically what's going to happen is that all the different Lantern Corps are going to fight one another. The entire emotional spectrum is basically going to be obliterated. All life in existence is going to vanish, and it will be nothing but blackness. The blackest night. It's quite literally what it sounds like. Now, the idea is that the Guardians of the Universe were warned by Adam Seward, the predecessor to Hal Jordan, the guy who crash landed on Earth, told his ring to go find a replacement, which chose Hal Jordan. That guy, Adam Seward, had been told the prophecy of Blackest Night by a trust. Adam Seward had reported his findings to the Guardians of the Universe, and they chose to ignore it. What ended up happening in the significance of the Sinestro Corps War is it brought into sharp relief. Other Lantern Corps are starting to pop up. The Zamorons, the women, or I guess the different aspects of the Guardians of the Universe who used to be Maltesers or women or whatever, who broke off and began tapping into the love aspect of the emotional spectrum. They have their own corps. Now we have the Red Lanterns. We have the Sinestro Corps. All we're missing now are the White Lanterns, the Black Lanterns. We haven't gotten to the Orange Lanterns yet. We have all these different Lantern Corps popping up. And when the Guardians of the Universe began to realize what was going on, a majority of them ignored everything that was happening. They said, no, the prophecy of the Blackest Night is a myth. It's not going to happen. We don't need to worry about that. But a couple of them, Gambit and Save, believed that it was true. And so because of this, Gambit and Save basically took the steps in saying, we need to make sure that if the prophecy of the Blackest Night is true, it's better to prepare something that won't happen than to prepare for something that will happen. And so because of that, what they ended up doing is forming their own Lantern Corps, the Blue Lanterns. Now, in terms of how this corps functions and how this corps exists, this actually comes from the way of St. Walker himself. And what he ends up doing is taking Hal Jordan to a planet called Odin, which I think it's called Odin, how it's pronounced. But what we end up finding out is that with the Green Lantern Corps, or like the Red Lantern Corps, or even the Sinestro Corps, something like that, you're basically like the rings are just kind of sent out into the universe. You know, the rings will be made and just be like, okay, just go out there and just find a replacement. A person will just be bonded with the ring for whatever reason. Either they instill great fear, or they have great rage in their heart, or they have the ability to overcome great fear, whatever the case may be. And they'll just kind of take off, just be sent to training, and they'll become a member of that corps. With regards to the Blue Lanterns, it's not that way. What happens here is that they are far more strict when it comes to inducting members into their group. The process takes days and weeks. A person is brought before the Blue Lantern, and they're basically sent to this massive ritual. Now, the reason for this is because of the fact that the Blue Lanterns are largely considered to be the most powerful Lantern Corps. Now, this is before the emergence of the White Lanterns, to be honest. But with regards to the Blue Lanterns, at this point in time, they're considered to be the most powerful because there's hope. Now, the Blue Lanterns, in terms of what they can do, again, can basically cleanse a person of the Red Lantern rage. We'll get to that why, we'll get to why that happens here in a second. But the idea is that the Blue Lanterns are really more of like a foundation. You know, I mean, they have abilities and so on and so forth, but the Blue Lanterns can only really use their power if they're in the presence of like a Green Lantern. So everything has checks and balances. And that's the really cool thing about it. It's one of the reasons why the Green Lantern mythos is so just kind of intriguing and interesting, is because a ring is powerful against one type of ring, but not against another. You know, it complements one of the Lantern Corps, but not another. There's always these different checks and balances that go into this one. Now, the other half of this is that we also pick up with the idea that really Hal Jordan is designed to kind of be this harbinger for the Blue Lanterns. The intention is to make him their leader. Now, this is not readily made for Hal Jordan. Instead, what we end up doing is we end up grabbing St. Walker and the newest introduction to the New Lantern Corps, and they're designed to basically go after and find Sinestro. Now, the reason for this is because of the fact that Sinestro is largely considered to be one of the prominent members or a significant person for the coming War of Light. We don't necessarily know why, but the indication here is that of all the Sinestro. He has to survive this whole thing. And so again, that's why this is so intriguing, is because we're given these little tidbits, these little itty-bitty pieces of information about characters, and we're told how important they are, but we're not explicitly told why. Now again, the reason why this is so important and is so cool is because for Hal Jordan's character, he's been a trainee of Val Sinestro, he's fought alongside Val Sinestro, and he's fought against.
That's right, Jason's back to work.
Been intertwined for years and years and years and years.
All day, bro.
It's also this idea that once they land on the
We'll paint off camera too sometimes, just to get messy for different vibe.
Reflecting on these moments, the experiences the two of them had previously, the discussions they got into, and all these different things, the battles they've had, the conflict they've had, even if it's only for a brief moment, Val Sinestro becomes a friend. He's an ally for a split second when he tells Hal Jordan to watch out. Now, of course, this leads to the emergence of the Red Lanterns, who, of course, promptly capture Hal Jordan. It's really this idea that they basically captured who people largely consider to be the two greatest Green Lanterns in existence. Now, of course, this leads to the arrival of the Sinestro Corps. And again, that's why this is so cool, is because this is Jeff Johns in DC giving us a taste. He's like, look, right now in this story, we're going to have the Blue Lanterns and the Green Lanterns and the Sinestro Corps battling the Red Lanterns. And that's just four. Imagine if we had all 7 or 8 or how many corps there are. Imagine if they were all fighting against each other at the same time. And that's the cool thing, is because in the midst of all this, with chaos and pandemonium reigning supreme, St. Walker, they all just kind of pop up on the scene, and it's like all will be well. When the ring of Hal Jordan begins to deplete, the Blue Lanterns are there to charge it. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why fans love the Blue Lanterns so much, because the Blue Lanterns are just kind of like, man, it's cool, dude. Just chill, man. Chill, dude. We got this, man. Like, it's just... it's calm, it's relaxation, because they are effectively monks. Now, one thing when it comes to the idea of the Red Lanterns, when a person is imbued with a Red Lantern's ring, they're designed to basically be mindless. The reason for this is because with Atrocitus being the first Red Lantern, he has full control of his faculties. You'll notice he's not like any of the other Atrocitus thinks, rationalizes, strategizes. He's got all this history, he taunts, different things like that. The other Red Lanterns are just mindless, raging beasts, because they're not designed to be tactical. They're not designed to be reasonable and think things through. They're designed to be a force of nature. They're designed to exist, and then Atrocitus says, go attack those guys over there, and then the Red Lanterns just show up in overwhelming force, just inflicting mass pandemonium and casualties. But when it comes to Hal Jordan, because of the fact that the former Green Lantern Library, again, we talked about her in the last video, because of the fact that she's basically been exiled from the Green Lanterns, she absolutely despised the members of the Sinestro Corps, had a massive amount of rage, wanted to kill every last one that she came across, and was following that, given a Red Lantern ring, or really just kind of forced into having a Red Lantern ring. She is effectively killed by Sinestro. Now, the reason why this matters is because this sends Hal Jordan over the edge. The idea was that he was going to try to find a way to save Lyra. Lyra was exiled because of the fact that she basically killed a member of the Sinestro Corps who had killed the family of one of her teammates. That was really it. She wasn't like a villain. She wasn't trying to conquer the world. She was just angry and hurting and dealing with it the best way she knew how. The result was that she was suddenly bonded with a Red Lantern. Sinestro, he's not killing her to spare Hal Jordan's life, not by any standard of measurement. He's doing that because he knows it'll get to Hal Jordan. And because of this, Hal Jordan snaps. Where Lyra's ring takes off and says, I'm finding a new sentient, Hal Jordan goes absolutely berserk and just loses it on Sinestro, literally beating the absolute hell out of him. And in this moment of rage and this moment of just absolute rampage, Hal Jordan is imbued with a Red Lantern ring. And that's the craziest thing, because this is the worst case scenario, really, for almost anybody. I mean, I would imagine at the time the story is being written, this is the worst case. Because imagine, for example, that Atrocitus basically gave Hal Jordan the ability to be a rational thinking being. Imagine he gave him the ability to basically be a guy who could think on his own. Hal Jordan would literally crush almost every single Lantern Corps that he came across. This is as close as we get to the return of Parallax. One other thing to keep in mind when it comes to the Red Lanterns is that when a person is made a Red Lantern, there's all kinds of things that come along with it. With regards to like the Green Lantern, let's just like the traditional Green Lantern, right? Let's say you're sitting at home one day and a Green Lantern ring just pops up in front of you and it says, you, member of the Rob Corps, of course your Rob Corps ring can overcome the Green Lantern ring, but nonetheless, say you don't want to be a Green Lantern, and the Ring will simply say, okay, searching for a trace substance, the Red Lantern, it doesn't work that way. On the Green Lantern Ring, you can swap and you have different abilities, and it's all tied to your willpower, your ability to overcome fear. It's pretty straightforward. When a Red Lantern really bonds itself to you, it becomes you. You basically have your heart replaced, your blood, your mental plasma. If you go to take the Red Lantern Ring off, you'll die. Because literally, the source of your ability to exist goes away. It's taken out having your heart ripped out of your body. That's exactly the way it works. And so because of this, under any normal circumstance, a person bonded with a Red Lantern Ring is going to die. The reason why this is so cool, and the reason why this is so interesting, is because in this moment, when Hal Jordan is basically running over all these different emotions, this pain that he's feeling, this hatred that he's feeling, this rage, all the things that Sinestro's done, where his mind and his body are going through all these physical changes in response to being given or basically being possessed by a Red Lantern Ring. Suddenly, St. Walker and company simply show up and say, we have no idea what's going to happen when we do this, but we're making you a member of the Blue Lantern Corps. And the reason why is because, again, as part of these checks and balances, the strengths of Lantern Corps versus the weaknesses of other Lantern Corps, so on and so forth, the Blue Lantern Ring basically begins the process of cleansing the person who's infected with a Red Lantern Ring. So it basically is their way out, is their power. Now that makes sense, because if that didn't exist, what we basically have is the Red Lanterns just spreading across the universe like a plague with no way to stop them. Now the idea here is that with Hal Jordan basically being given this Blue Lantern Ring that works in conjunction with his Green Lantern Ring, he's effectively a hybrid. It's almost like he has the best of both worlds, which is kind of cool here, because this sets the groundwork for a lot of things that we'll end up seeing coming out next. But in terms of getting into this prelude of the whole, Blackest Night, this whole scenario, we basically end up having Thal Sinestro escaping back to his home planet, getting to the antimatter universe on the planet of Ford, recharging his ring using a central power battery, going out, grabbing those individuals who were truly faithful to the Sinestro Corps, killing those individuals who were not. Again, this follows a multitude of groups as we all end up getting into this idea of the War of Light. But one of the things that happens here, and one of the things that's interesting, is we also end up hinting at the Orange Light of Avarice. Now, the Orange Light of Avarice has not been discussed yet. We haven't really done anything about it yet. That'll be the next video that we do. But the Orange Light of Avarice is basically the Orange Light of Greed, and it belongs to a singular guy named Larfleet. Now, in terms of why he lives in the Vega system, in terms of why it is the Guardians of the Universe have always been hands-off, we'll get into that as we get into his own individual story. But in terms of, like, the Star Sapphires, for example, Carol Ferris, the girlfriend of Hal Jordan, joining the Star Sapphires, this comes by way of the fact that with Hal Jordan basically taking off the Earth, with Carol Ferris having continually rebuked him, she never has a change of heart. She wants him back. She wants him there. And because of that, when Hal Jordan is basically off in space and Carol Ferris takes something to her mind, her emotions begin to get the better of her. She begins to feel sadness. She begins to feel a loss of love. Because of this makes her a target for the Star Sapphire. And so like she was originally, at least way back in the 1950s, when she was a Star Sapphire, this is history repeating itself all over again. And so again, that's the basis behind this Rage of the Red Lantern story. Yes, it deals with the Red Lanterns, but it's also this coming together of all these different Lantern Corps, because this is the last piece of the puzzle until we get to Blackest Night. Okay, so it is 12:30 in the morning right now, and I have recorded something like 7 or 8 audio files. I am exhausted. Spent all day today doing nothing but reading comics, and man, I need to get some rest. But PAX West is coming up this weekend, so I gotta prep ahead of time. So we are finally jumping into Blackest Night, and it is about time. I told you guys the layout of Blackest Night is huge. It's massive in scope. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling, because everything we've covered really with the beginning of Green Lantern Secret Origin all the way up to this point has all led to Blackest Night. So it's actually really, really exciting. But one thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that this comes as part of the aftermath of the death of Batman. Now, the way this all plays out, and really the nature of Blackest Night, is to kind of hit home at the idea of character resurrections. For those of you guys who are new to comic books, character resurrections were never really a thing until the death of Superman. And the reason why was because, for the most part, when a character was killed off, they usually just stayed dead. There was really no sense in bringing them back, and it was really important for writers to follow that trend, because whenever they wrote stories where a character died, there was a finality to it. It was the idea that, well, this character's dead now, and they're never going to come back. The death of Superman and then the return of Superman basically cheapened it. It created this standard where it essentially said, so long as there's some kind of caveat, whether it's time travel, whether it's going into healing matrix, whatever it is, as long as the writer creates some sort of caveat, any character can example, sacrificed his life in order to cure the legacy virus, this virus that was just sweeping through the entirety of the mutant and even human community like a plague. And then following that, he was basically resurrected, by Joss Whedon. So this whole idea that the characters don't really stay dead anymore, all really has its roots in the death of Superman. With Batman, he essentially died during Final Crisis. Now, of course, we'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through this video, but the idea here is that we initially pick up with the Scarred Guardian. Now, we don't really know who the Scarred Guardian is. We just know that it's this Guardian whose face is scarred. Now, the reason for this is because this is one of the Guardians that faced off against the Anti-Monitor during the events of Sinestro War. Now, keep in mind, the Anti-Monitor basically channels antimatter energy, whereas everything in the main DC universe is positive energy. In this story, it's just the idea that if positive matter is touched by antimatter, it'll begin to erode. And so that's why the Guardian's face is so scarred and so screwed up, is because it was basically touched by the Anti-Monitor, which began to erode its face. Now, the response to this was that as this Guardian was essentially on the brink of death, it was suddenly met by the entity Metron, one of the many entities that exist as part of the emotional spectrum. Keep in mind, within the DC universe, you have the emotional spectrum. And the emotional spectrum is just a reflection of sentient life. And so as long as there are beings out there, alien, humans, otherwise, who feel anger, who feel love, who feel compassion, whatever the case may be, that part of the emotional spectrum will exist because of the fact that it's fed by those very emotions. Likewise, because there are beings that exist, a time will come when they die. And so the Black Lantern Corps represents the concept of death. The idea is that while this Guardian was basically experiencing what amounted to near-death experiences, so to speak, it was met with Metron because each of these different
This is gonna look good.
basically has a kind of entity that represents it, which is to say all the emotion in the universe, all the fear, for example, in the universe coalesces into a being that embodies all the
Alright, gonna leave this one alone for a while and go take a little break.
These are how all these different things work. In the case of the Black
Give you a little zoom in on what I'm doing so far.
coalesces into a being called Necron, meaning that Necron seems to be basically undefeatable. So long as there's life in existence,
You can see where I went over his last hand.
Necron represents the
I replaced it with a new, better hand.
It's really kind of crazy and really sort of mind-boggling.
I like that Anti-Venom is like the size of Venom, but with the aesthetics of Carnage, but with the reverse colors of Venom. And then Toxin is like the size of Carnage, but with the reverse colors of Carnage and the face of Venom.